And people were caught in that they were desiring of much of the material, energetic material forms that they wish to possess.
Were you controlled in the realms of power, energy power, for things like heating and lighting and travel?
Yes. They were, from what I remember and have been told, they were the main sources of conflict at the, I hesitate to call it the end, but the shift in energy from the third to the fourth.
Yeah.
Around, yes, heating, around accommodation, around various other things that seemed to be necessary for their life.
And healthcare?
You have a healthcare that is available to everybody in this country. That is not the case necessarily in the rest of your world. In our world, yes, healthcare was available to everybody, and it remains that way.
Was it controlled by large sort of pharmaceutical companies or people who were preventing cures?
Yes, at that time it was. So when the shift, if you like, took place, then the collapse of those, not the pharmaceutical companies and what they produced did not collapse. That continued, but it was the breaking of the bonds or the relationships between the various forms of outlets. For instance, the connection between the producers of the medicines and the, what you would say, doctors who would distribute the medicines out. There was the removal of the energy incentive, if you like. Once that is removed, the power and control shifts from the relationship between the pharmaceutical company and the doctors to that of the people, the general population.
Did this mean that cures for certain diseases could then come about?
That took some time because there needed to be some admission that the pharmaceutical companies had these cures within their remit, within their medicine banks, if you like. That's how we looked at it. But it was only when those that were of a different energetic nature not took control of the way Mythia was run, but enabled these things to be revealed. What is, I think, interesting is that there is an Elder Council on Mythia. And of course you could say that, well, that is comparable to a government that you have. And what is the important thing here is that there is no projection of power and control from the people onto the Elder Council. They do not see the Elder Council as being driven by ego. They see them being driven by the energetic desire to ensure the safety and the peaceful living of all that live on Mythia.
And presumably the protection of your planet.
The protection of our planet is a natural extension of the vibration or the energy that the whole of Mythia, the whole of the people that make up the Mythian civilization, that protects the planet.
How many people do you have on Mythia?
I don't know the answer. I don't know the exact answer to that question.
Is it a similar kind of population to ours here on Earth?
It is larger because it is a larger planet.
Okay.
It is maybe 4 or 5 times larger than Earth,
Wow.
though there are vast regions that are not populated by the Mythian people. There are huge resources there.
Do you now have a source of free energy for your heating and, energetic power?
Well, the source of the energy has not changed. It is solar. It is from our sun. We have a number of suns that rotate around the planet. That was always there. It is a question of we do not exchange anything for it now. We have basic levels of ways of being that are there for each Mythian as a standard, as a right to have, simply because they are in existence.
And you just use solar power?
Yes. You have nuclear power. That is another energy. As long as it is controlled. There are obvious dangers with nuclear power.
We have lots of wind and some sun.
We have wind as well, but we have plenty of sun, of heat.
Wonderful. So where were you on your planet before, as you entered into this shift? What was happening, and how long then did the shift take?
What was happening? Well, there was a gradual disinterest that grew within the basic psyche of each Mythian. Dissatisfaction was rising, in that there was a disparity between those that had the least and those that had the most, and not just material objects but also influence and power. There is only a certain level of containment that the energy of those in power can wield on those that do not have power. At some point, the energy of those that do not have power will always break out. Though, of course, there will be attempts by those in power to contain the situation, to maintain their level of control. It is a question of size and numbers that eventually will take the power away from those that have it. It is part of the process to, as I have said to him, that it is around whether you desire to participate in the nature of power and control, because what our experience was that at the top, those with the most power and control would distribute their power and control down the hierarchical structure. And so there would be those, say, in the middle that would have maybe 50% of the level of power and control of those at the top, though they would see their 50% as their own 100%, and they would be attached to that, and it is one of the most difficult things to let go of. It was for the Mythian people to let go of the amount of power and control that they had, because of the uncertainty as to what would happen. There was no certainty as to what would happen. What did happen was that it seemed to take on a life of its own. It seemed to initially be coordinated by those that were promoting the movement from the third to the fourth, or the raising of consciousness within the Mythian civilization. But eventually it got to a point where it took on a life of its own, and the natural course of events was allowed to unfold. And as people on Mythia came to understand that there was a different way of living, that they were not afraid, if you want to use that term, they were not afraid of the potential of a new way of living. They let go of their fear, they let go of their own power and control. Many did so through perhaps curiosity. Many did so because of their desire for change. What eventually came to be was the establishment of the Elder Council, because it was realised that there had to be somebody, if you wish to use the term, in control, though it was a different type of control coming from a different source.
More like a coordinator?
It was more like a coordinator, but it was an energy that was connected to everyone, not a separated energy. It was a inclusive, a one energy. That is what is manifested out of everyone who lets go of their separateness. If you like, there are two. There are separateness and there is non-separateness. If you let go of separateness, of course, you have non-separation.
And so there's a couple of questions that I have following what you've just said. The first would be, how did that information start to spread in the early days? Do you have social networks and like an internet equivalent?
Well, that was the technology equivalent to that which you have now. Though, of course, what started to happen was, as groups of Mythians let go of their power and control, they realised that their level of energetic vibration would rise, because it was the nature of their existence when the power and control was there, was to move their attention away from that which is their natural way of being. And of course, when you are in your natural way of being and you have largely no fear of death or no fear of not having whatever it is you want, the natural abilities of communication started to appear, and it was a case of, well, a lot of Mythians were then able to communicate telepathically with one another across vast areas of the planet. And this was not recordable by those that were in control. Of course, you have to understand that anything that is within your electronic sphere is recordable and can be monitored by those in control. So they are very well aware of what is going on all the time, though you have to